In this Kenilworth Castle revision video, we are going to look at two big questions. Why was Kenilworth built when and where it was? Now, these two questions make up the first two parts of the assessment criteria for history around us, and we'll look at them both in turn. So there's a couple of key people that we need to think about when we're thinking about both of these questions. First of all, King Henry I, who's King of England when Kenilworth is first built, and Geoffrey de Clinton, who's the guy who actually builds Kenilworth and is the first owner in the 1120s, so we're talking around 900 years ago. Now, we're actually going to focus first of all on Henry I. It's important for us to know a little bit about him and think about why he needs more castles and more power. So, in the 1120s, King Henry's position as king is under a little bit of threat. There are people rebelling against him, there are questions about his power, and in particular, one recent event has weakened his position. His only son and heir to the throne has died in a terrible boat accident travelling between France and England. And this has left a real sense of instability in the country. There are uncertainties about who will be the next king after Henry. Henry, here we see in a document from the time, absolutely devastated, and he was about the death of his son. But as we say, this does just create generally more instability and therefore more problems for Henry to deal with. So, what has this got to do with Kenilworth? Well, Henry's there and he's thinking, well, what do I do? What does a medieval king do when he needs more power, when he's in trouble? Well, medieval kings need two things. They need friends, people they can trust, people they can rely on, and they need castles. And this is where Kenilworth, the story of Kenilworth, begins. So, if we think generally about Henry I, the whole country is a bit of a problem. There's little hot areas kind of all over that's creating issues. But there's one in particular, which we are now going to think about, that links us to Kenilworth. So where that blue dot is a problem area for Henry. And that's because of the Earl of Warwick. He is one of the biggest people who is causing problems for Henry, who Henry's worried about. And so Henry needs to think about controlling him, limiting the Earl of Warwick's influence, and kind of putting him back in his place. So Henry is thinking, what does he do? How can he solve the issue? And he thinks of his friends, his person he can trust, Geoffrey de Clinton. And he then gives Geoffrey de Clinton land and a position of power. So this guy, Geoffrey de Clinton, is made the Sheriff of Warwickshire, so a powerful position of leadership across the region. He is given the royal land of Stoneleigh, roughly this kind of place on the map, and he's supported in building a new castle. And so all of this is a way of creating power for Geoffrey de Clinton, who is relied on and trusted by the king, and in turn taking power and influence away from the Earl of Warwick and kind of keeping an eye on him. So, quick recap then. When and why did people first create the site? So we're talking 1120s, 900 years ago. This is all under the influence of King Henry I, who's trying to secure his power, keep control. He's in a position of a bit of trouble. It's specifically about a way of controlling the Earl of Warwick. Linked to this, Geoffrey de Clinton has this new position. He's the sheriff, he's got this new land, and he therefore needs a castle. He's building his power, he's building his influence in the region. Now, we'd always need to talk about physical features, right? So at this point, the main physical feature we're going to talk about is this building, the Great Tower or Keep. This is the first main construction at Kenilworth, and we have this detail of it being 4.3 meter thick walls, which just shows us the kind of the military defensive nature of the castle when it's first built. So this gives us a reminder, an overview of why people first create the site. But moving on to the second question in this video, why do they choose the exact place? And if we look back on the map, all of these positions, anywhere within that kind of red circle, could have been chosen. So we need to think specifically now, why is it that Geoffrey de Clinton chooses the exact place where Kenilworth is today? And there's a few things that help explain. Not only, of course, is it close to Warwick, okay, it's about 5 miles away from Warwick. More specifically, there's a number of natural, physical features in the environment which help explain the location. First of all, it's on a natural hill. So perfect for placing a castle, for placing a keep that can look out across the horizon, can look out across the lands. An important aspect of building a defensive castle, and typical for castles all over. So Geoffrey de Clinton finds a place, it's got a hill, perfect. That's the first thing. Second thing, you need water sources. So nearby to the site where we've got this hill, there's also the River Avon is nearby, and there are also small streams to the south and the west of the site. This is helpful for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's going to help with defense. So watery areas, marshlands are going to be harder to attack over. But also, you need water for living and for the castle's everyday use. If we match that with our third thing, that just next to the hill, here we can see Kenilworth a little bit later as it's being developed, where that red arrow is a natural valley. And so Geoffrey de Clinton saw and noticed that this could be flooded using the water sources we've just looked at. It could be flooded to create the mere. Again, this is really important for defensive reasons, but also for living, for fishing, etc. So, quick recap. Why is it built where it is? Well, it's close to Warwick, so Geoffrey de Clinton can keep an eye on the troublesome Earl. There's this natural sandstone hill. We've got these water sources nearby, and we've got the valley which can be flooded. So just to finish off this video quickly, let's have a quick look at a couple of questions from past exam papers that are related to what we've been looking at. So here's the first one. Explain the reasons why people first created your site within its surroundings. And then as always, remember it says use physical features of the site as well as your own knowledge to support your answer. So remember we've said we need to read these questions really, really carefully. So this one says, well, why is it built within its surroundings? So this one is particularly focused and interested in things like the hill, the valley, the rivers. Remember, we're always explaining, so not just describing what's going on, we're explaining why that resulted in a castle being built in this instance. Second question we can see here, why do people first start using your site? So this is a different idea, a different focus from that first question. This is all about why are they actually using the place? Okay, so less about the natural surroundings and more about those political factors to do with Henry I's position, the Earl of Warwick, and Geoffrey de Clinton. Again, just to highlight and focus, we're thinking about explaining, not just describing these people, but really explaining why their positions, why these issues lead to a castle being built. Okay, so you could have a go at planning out your answers to those, or even writing up a full paragraph or two.